This is an intro. I don't need an intro. I don't need an intro. This is just the
YouTube, what is up? I'm your OhmBoy Josh, back at you with another installment of Coil Wars, where 10 coil warriors are going to go head-to-head in weekly build challenges until only one remains and is crowned the Coil Wars Champion. This week, the only direction we gave our coil warriors was that their build had to be an Alien Coil. The Alien Coil, created by Blue-Eyed Goon 83. His original concept was to create a Clapton coil, decore that Clapton, stretch that decored Clapton on out, and then re-Clapton it backwards onto 3 parallel strands of straight wire. And ever since then, people have been fascinated with the Alien Coil because, well, they just look amazing. They're incredibly difficult to make. It took me 3 months to make it the first time I tried. It looks like an alien from Ridley Scott's Aliens. I mean, that's how cool this coil is. So that's the direction we gave our competitors. First entry comes from Dark Dog Customs. The core of the Alien is 9 strands of Kanthal ribbon wire, so this is actually a frame staple Alien with 28 and 80 frames. Then it is Alien Clapton over with an actual Clapton of 36 gauge and 42 gauge and 80. And he parallels all that up with another Clapton of 26 gauge and 38 gauge. It ohms out single coil, 4 wraps at 0.1 ohms. Mike at Dark Dog Customs was what he calls a hybrid user for a while. He smoked as well as vaped. He used the blue at home, and he still smoked at work for a while. He finally quit entirely with a Monstro V2 and an Arctic tank combo. He vaped a whole lot of Public Enemy from Vigilante Vape in the beginning. There was a blood orange and vanilla bean flavor. He wanted to get as far from a tobacco flavor as he could. He used 3 milligram Nick from the start and crushed his pack the day he got it. He hasn't had a cigarette since. The next build comes from Teddy Damp. It was his first Alien in 7 months, he says, so he hasn't built one of these in a while. And it is also a frame staple Alien with a polish to it, so he's put a sort of mirrored finish on this coil. It's 6 times 0.3 ribbon wire for the core, 2 times 26 gauge for the frames, and it's Alien Clapton over with 35 gauge. Love the mirror finish on this one, Teddy. Great job there. That looks beautiful, man. Teddy Damped started with an Ego T and an Apple vape. This is 5 years ago. Doesn't remember what he bought after the Ego T. Then he stopped with the vaping and started again with cigarettes for 6 months. Now he's been vaping for 3 years again. He started with 18 milligram nicotine. At the moment he vapes 1 milligram nic. Sometimes he smokes a cigarette at work, but he went from 40 cigarettes a day to 1 cigarette a day. Macy Vapes is back with another beautiful, colorful build here. He's got a staple down the middle, but the staple is actually stacked flat rather than vertical. 4 times 0.7 Kanthal ribbon wire, wrapped in 40 gauge nichrome, and it is framed by 26 gauge nichrome on either side. And then he's done an interlocking Alien with 34 gauge and 36 gauge nichrome. And he also gave us a nice little juice shot of the coils too. Ooh. That looks really, really yummy, Macy. That coil looks mighty, mighty tasty, I gotta say. He also threw us a couple edits. These edits are really, really cool. It looks like something out of a graphic novel. Macy Vapes quit with the help of the Kangertech Subvot kit. He vaped Cherry Menthol and Pancake Man and French Dude liquids, 6 milligram Nick. Shortly after being told by the doctors he needed to stop smoking and drinking due to a liver and lung condition called Serum 1 and antitrypsin deficiency. I think I'm saying that right. Vaping helped him keep his lungs moving. He went on to buy a Smoke X Cube Mini with a TF-V4 tank, and his first RDA was the Mutation XV4. He started building his own coil shortly after that. Then he went on to the RX200S, and today he got himself a Lux. Our next build comes from Laricus88. It is an 8-ply, 0.4mm Kanthal ribbon wire staple. You guys love your staples, man. He uses 8 plies, 0.4mm ribbon wire for the core. It's framed with 26 gauge nichrome. And then it's Alien Clapton with 40 gauge, and the Alien Clapton is actually stitched with 38 gauge. It is his take on a stitched Enigma Alien, which I've never heard of before until this competition, so I've been snoozing a little bit.
Laricus88 started smoking at the age of 16 and went for 10 years smoking a 50-gram packet of tobacco every week. Wow. He tried periodically to quit through other means, through patches, gums, lozenges, and just going straight cold turkey, but always ended up back to cigarettes by about 8 weeks max. Then on the 26th of January 2015, he had been out on the drink the night before and woke up feeling rather rough. So he decided to take his chance to try and quit again. Having heard of a shop in his local town that sold simple ego pens, he went and bought one with a raspberry-flavored e-liquid. From then on, he never looked back. He went on a month later to buy the Innokin MVP3 and an Aspire Nautilus tank with some slightly better quality liquids. After a few months on that, he got himself a Kanger sub-tank, and so began the coil building addiction. And you all know where it ends from there.
Ramo to You actually made one as well. For his own Enigma Alien, Ramo to You used 15 plies of 0.4 ribbon wire for the core, 28 gauge 316 stainless steel for the frames. He used a strand of 40 gauge and a 42 gauge to create an interlocking alien wrap over all that. Beautiful, colorful build here as well, Ramo.
Ramo to You tried to quit smoking when he was 22 or 23 years old. He tried a kit from Totally Wicked e-liquid, used a 510 Titan. At the time, it had some great reviews on it compared to the blue e-cig, as it was the only other vaping device he could find. 2 weeks into using it, he thought he had quit smoking. He even got used to the feeling of the 42 milligram nicotine cartridge and juice he was ordering. He didn't know any better back then. About a month later, the 3 Titans he ordered had all died, and then he went back to smoking. And that was 3 years ago. On May 3rd of 2013, he bought a VV Nova kit and used it for almost 8 months. He stopped smoking within the first 2 days of vaping. With the support of the forums out there, he found that 17 milligram nicotine was a much better feel in the throat, and the taste of the newer juices were amazing. He knew he'd never go back to smoking, and he would continue to vape no matter what. With the release of the Aspire Nautilus, his obsession to buy more gear started, along with the tinkering side of vaping. From there, he got into RDAs, sub-tanks, coil building. Trying to blow big, massive clouds was his goal at the time. And this went on until about 6 months ago when he started to pull away from building and buying for clouds and focus more on flavor intensity and vapor density. Though he still hasn't lightened up in the purchasing of gear or building. It's just more oriented towards the new goal.
Bad MF Mike, Bad Motherfucking Mike, created a Mohawk Alien and staged that coil against a Staple. The Staple is 4 times 0.3 ribbon and 42 gauge. The Mohawk is 28 gauge for the core and 38 gauge for the Mohawk Alien wrap. Mike, that thing is lighting up real pretty.
Bad MF Mike started his vaping journey with an Aspire starter kit. He thinks it was an ego of some kind. He was a pack-a-day smoker for 32 years. His wife had a case of pneumonia that put her in the hospital, intubated for 8 days. She came home on oxygen. He knew right then that he had to quit. He tried cold turkey and couldn't do it. Tried other methods in the past, Wellbutrin, patches, gums. Then his 20-year-old daughter told him about vaping and took him to a vape shop and got him on a starter kit, and he stopped. He stopped that day, and he hasn't picked up a cigarette since. He quit with strawberry milk.
2 CFTP also gave us another staged heating coil. It is a Mohawk paralleled up against a corrugated Alien, ohming out at 0.09 ohms. The Mohawk is 3 times 26 gauge, Alien with 35. Corrugated Alien is 2 times 26 gauge and 1 strand of 0.4 ribbon wire that's been corrugated. It's a 2.5 millimeter internal diameter, 4 wraps of the Mohawk and 3 wraps for the corrugated Alien. That corrugated Alien is really cool. If you look closely in one of these little photos that he has in his montage, you can see that corrugated wrap coming up through in between the spaces of the wrap. That's really cool looking effect, man, I gotta say.
2 CFTP started smoking every day at the age of 15. He smoked for about 31 years. His first e-cig was an Ego 1 Mega. 6 days later, he got him a Kanger Tech sub-box mini kit. And 2 weeks later, he bought a Cooper Plus. Then it went downhill fast, he says. A few months after he started vaping, he started to fiddle with mech mods. He smoked 1.5 packs per day, if drinking as much as 3.5 packs per day when he was smoking cigarettes. And since the 26th of October last year, he hasn't had a single smoke. His favorite vapes are the Double Barrel, the Twisted Messes box, and the Limitless Mech.
And Divine came in with a caged alien build. He has a Mohawk alien with 3x26 gauge alien Clapton in 36. He has a stitched alien, 3x26, 36 gauge for the alien, and it is stitched with 40 gauge. And then he used a single strand of 24 gauge stainless steel to bind that all together in a caged wrap. So it's a caged alien coil. He used all pure Adamus nichrome, 3mm internal diameters on both aliens. One is a 5 wrap, one is a 6 wrap. 6 wrap being the Mohawk, the 5 wrap being the Stitch. And all of it ohms out at 0.08. And yes, by the way, the top cap does fit. And he also came in with a beautiful edit here. It's like a beam of light bouncing right off this coil. I love this edit, man. It's awesome. It's dope.
And Divine83 VBC says that he was done with vape pens and egos about a week into vaping. He says he got a Drunker tank, he hated it. He got the Pro Tank V2, and it was okay. But when he got his Omega clone to put on top of his telescoping Centennial, the sky was the limit. He didn't even have to drill out the airflow, and he could angle his silica any way he wanted. The first juice he fell in love with was Hobbs Blood by the Vapor Chef.
Crazy Vapes is back with another crazy build here. It is 4x0.4 nichrome ribbon wire. 2 strands kind of split in half by this alien coil, and those strands are corrugated and placed in perfect alignment on either side of each other, I might add. In between those 2 corrugated ribbon strands, he's got a micro alien, 3x30 nichrome alien Clapton with 36 nichrome. The frames are 26 gauge nichrome as well. Then he's spaced that alien wrap over it with 36 gauge. So it's an alien within some corrugated ribbon wire within a frame. It's crazy. And it was funny because at first he kept posting these macro shots of the coil, and one after another of a macro shot, and I kept waiting and waiting to see the whole coil because I wanted to see what this thing looked like. I couldn't wait to see the thing. I couldn't wait to see what this thing looked like. So
Crazy Vape started in 2014 with an original Revolver 18650 tube mod in an authentic Tobe RDA that he got from a local shop called Advantage Vapors in Manahawkin, New Jersey. His first build was a 24 gauge Canthal 5 wrap with a 2.4mm internal diameter. The reason why he went straight to mech mods was because he had extensive training in electricity and Ohm's law, and that's why the shop sold him a mech mod instead of an ego battery. Because of his career as an electrical lineman, he needed something that hit hard and gave him that nicotine relief. Since he can't vape in the protective gear he wears, he only had very short periods of time where he was able to take a hit from his vape and had to make it count.
And last up, we have the build from Schizopart, our friend from Germany. I guess in Germany they use millimeters rather than gauges. Okay, so he says the core is 3x0.3 millimeters, the alien is 0.2 millimeters, and the stitch is 0.1 millimeters flat wire. So basically he has a stitched alien here, and the stitch is ribbon wire. I love the layers and gradations of colors in this build. It just came together beautifully. And the way the stitch worked out, it just creates this beautiful look, like a chain or something. It's an awesome build.
Schizopart smoked since he was 14, so for 24 years. He's 38 years old now. Unfortunately, he still hasn't completely moved away from cigarettes, but he went from smoking about 40 to 50 cigarettes a day to about 10 to 15. He's been using the steam in January 2016 when he started. Approximately 2 months, he used a cuboid and a cubus. Then he went to a mechanical mod and a dripper. He vapes on creamy, sweet vanilla liquids, Lupa, Pulsar, Father's Milk, and the translation here is from Uncle Google. Thank you, Uncle Google.
And that's it for our contestants. But wait, one builder is being added to the competition. There was always the possibility of us adding in a wild card to this competition, and that's what we decided to do with our alien competition that we were having on the side. If you remember back to the last installment, I invited everyone out there to go ahead and submit alien coils to the Coil Wars page. Well, part of that challenge was to see if we had a wild card that we wanted to invite in, and we do. The winner of the wild card is MTN Tom. Mountain Tom is what I'm going to call him, because that's what it looks like to me. He's out of the UK and goes by the name Tom Day. He's a member of the Flatwire UK build team. When I saw this build tagged to the Coil Wars page, my mouth hit the floor, and when I posted it, I had no idea that it would do as well as it did. Something like 120 likes by the time I sent all the builds off to the judges, which was back on Wednesday. His build was a stovetop coil that used a hollow 35 gauge stainless steel alien, meaning that he made this alien and then decored the alien completely. He twisted all that with 23 gauge stainless steel flat wire. I swear guys, looking at this build, it looks like birthday cake or something. I don't know. It just looks like something topped with sprinkles with all the colors that he got on this build.
Mountain Tom's first device was the Anakin MVP3, and he used the iSub G tank. It was filled with a cherry pie e-liquid.
Our judge for this week was none other than Hazel Jedi. Hazel Jedi is one of the first builders that I really became just enamored with their work on Instagram. I looked at his builds and I swear something about them was just really unique, and I'd seen a lot of builders on Instagram. I follow a bunch of builders, but his were the first that inspired me to go out and pick up the drill myself. Something about them, I don't know, just something really unique about his builds. They're like tentacles. They're odd shapen and just really gnarly and interesting looking coils. Builds that went beyond just the norm. And it wasn't just that, it was his whole attitude. The way that he responds to people, the way that he speaks to people on Instagram, with just a sense of encouragement, with a sense of equality. And I always admired the way that he spoke to me, a very inexperienced builder, and the way he speaks to even the most well-known builders. I mean, he is just someone that I look up to on Instagram, the way that he conducts himself and the way that he speaks to other people and the way that he carries himself and the way that he builds. I wanted him to judge the first leg of this competition. So, Hazel Jedi, thank you again so much for your participation here, buddy. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being a part of this. He wanted me to let you all know that it was not an easy task for him to judge this round. That all the warriors managed to blow this Jedi's mind, as he said, his own words. That's how he talks. He says, bravo to you all for the way you laid it down in this comp. The very first device that he picked up when he started vaping was a K100 mech mod, and the juice that he fell in love with back then was Space Jam Andromeda. Our winner for this challenge, the one build that really stood out, was N-Divine's build. What impressed him most was that there was a stitched alien, there was a mohawk alien, they were all grouped together, and it just showed the whole spectrum for him, and he loved that build. He also said that a close second for him was Schizopart's build, so if he had to choose a runner-up, it would have been Schizopart. So your winner for this week is N-Divine83 VBC. And he did sadly have to choose one builder that would not be continuing on with us today, and that builder is Bad MF Mike, Bad Motherfucking Mike. So Mike, it's sad to see you go. I definitely want to thank you again, once again, for taking part in the Coil Wars competition. It was wonderful to have you. I'm a huge fan of everything that Mike is doing in the community. Mike, if you don't remember, is the founder of Clouds on Wheels, a cloud competition for disabled vapors. And I applaud him for what he is doing in that arena. I think that is fantastic. And when I asked Mike if he had any parting words for us, he said, well, since this is his 15 minutes of fame, he just wants to say, hi, Mom. So shout out to Mike's mom. Awesome. Farewell to Mike, a hello to Tom Day, Mountain Tom. So we still have 10 competitors in this competition. We will not be adding another wild card, so don't get excited. But the challenge for next week is going to be Staple Coils. And once again, everyone is invited to go ahead and submit Staple Coil pictures to the Coil Wars page. We'll repost them as we go along. The photo with the most likes will get a shout out alongside our competitors here next time on Coil Wars. And that said, let's go ahead and throw together a staple coil. So I've always loved the half staggered staple. It's become kind of a new trend on Instagram to see this half staggered staple build. Everyone's kind of jumping on that one, and I've always loved it. I've built it a couple times. So today what we're going to make is a half staggered staple, and for this build we're going to need our drill, we're going to need our vise, some swivel tools, we're going to need some nichrome 0.5 ribbon wire, and we're going to need some 36 gauge round wire. We're going to need some screwdrivers, we're going to need some handy dandy ceramic tweezers, we're going to need some wire clippers, and we're going to need our pliers. So we're going to take a length of this flat ribbon wire, this is 0.5 ribbon, and we're going to go about 8 times around the spool. So that's about 8 times around the spool, and give it a tug. So we're going to take this long strand of ribbon, taking the two ends together, and we're going to put a little crease in that. We're going to drape this on through the swivel tools, find the middle again, give it a good tug. So now our single strand has become 4 plies of ribbon wire stacked together. Keep everything together, what I like to do is take a damp paper towel and run it across the strands, and the water helps the ribbon wire sort of stick to each other. Now, the bend in there can make the ribbon kind of not line up quite right. The bend doesn't do the ribbon much of a favor. It just kind of helps get it organized. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and clip it off right behind the bend. There are a bunch of ways to get the ribbon to stay together. You can use tape, you can wrap it with a bit of 36, some people like using a bit more ribbon wire. Whatever you need to do at the end of the ribbon wire to get it to stay straight, do what you need to do. I like using tape. It's nice and slow with the towel and the water. Bring it on down toward the end, making sure everything stays in alignment. And then when you get down to the very end, place a bit of tape there. What I do is just fold a piece of tape over and then cut off any excess that I don't need. That way it also creates a nice flat space where it'll anchor on into the chuck really nice. And cut off the bottom too. Make sure it's good and tight in the chuck. Now, like I said before, this is going to be a half staggered staple. So what we're going to do is take our 36 gauge. I sort of use a variation of Raybad's technique. I actually saw this technique, this variation, demonstrated on Vape Capital's channel. Great channel if you're a vape enthusiast. And they do cloud comps, they do builds, they do vape models, all kinds of good stuff. We're going to be building on the recoil in a little while, so we're going to take the top cap from the recoil. It's a good heavy top cap. You want to use a good heavy top cap for this. And then you're going to take a length of 36, about 2 times around the spool, and you come around here behind the chuck. I find it actually helps to rest the RDA on something, like the box. It's something that, it's not going to fall off or anything while you're tying it on there, because it's got weight to it, and that's the point. It's supposed to have weight. Give it a good tug, and then clip off the excess. And this is going to create the staggered wrap on the ribbon wire. I just go ahead and tuck the knot on into the RDA so it doesn't get in the way. From there, you go out just like you're making a Clapton coil, and it's going to do the staggering for you. Whenever you're comfortable, go ahead and drop in the suspended RDA into the groove that you created in that Clapton wrap. And then stop when you get to right about the middle. It's created this sort of perfectly spaced, staggered staple. Clip off the wire, clip off the RDA, we're done with that. And what you're left with is a perfectly spaced, staggered staple. And you can see how this 36 gauge is going to fit perfectly into that gap when we Clapton over it again. Half of our ribbon strand all set up, we're going to go ahead and clip it off right over here, right at the edge of the swivel tools. This should all be kind of reminiscent of how we made that sort of staple tiger coil before. Stapled it all up the middle, then folded it in half. It's kind of the same thing here. Staggering it up to the middle this time, and then we're going to fold it on over. So we're just sort of bending it on over the swivel tools. So we've got 4 plies of ribbon wire that's been sort of stagger stapled, and we've got 4 plies of ribbon wire that are still naked. And we're just kind of bringing those up against each other, making sure that they're lining up. All the ribbon should be facing the exact same way, and it should all be vertical. I have tape at the end holding it all together, and then I've got basically just a few wraps around at the beginning just to make sure that's all going to line up right. Just fuse it all together into the gaps. You're all done. Clip it on off. And that's how I like to make the half staggered staple. So I've got a single coil in here, and it's a yummy, yummy, yummy build. It ohms out at about 0.23 ohms, and I vape it at about 70 watts. I might dual it up later, make a second coil for this. I think it would work as a dual coil, so I might do that when I get back. I am going away for the weekends, so this might be the only time you hear from me this weekend. Sorry, yeah, I got a wedding to go to in New York, but I'll be back soon. That's why my hair looks all spiffy. Anyway. So it's a yummy, yummy vape. I love a Staple Coil, and the half staggered staple to it just makes it even more flavorful, if you ask me, than a regular staple, because you know it's got more grooves and more little nooks and crannies where that juice can pool. And you can also do this as a framed half staggered staple too. It's a lot of different variations that you can do on this coil. It's a fun build. Anyway guys, till next time, this is Coil Wars, and that's a wrap. Vape on, vapors.